Good evening and welcome to the Coeur d'Alene City Council meeting for the December the 6th. The clerk will note that we have one councilor not here tonight. Amy is ill and out, so otherwise we don't need to call a roll. We have Amanda Nicole from Community United Methodist Church here to provide us with an invocation. Amanda? Welcome to the City Council meeting, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Good evening. I invite participants to call to mind their name for the sacred. In my tradition, we call God, God. And will you please join me in prayer? O God, we thank you for our civic leaders and the calling you have placed on their lives. We thank you also for all workers who serve our city. To them you have entrusted the task of governing this community. Make them faithful in their service. Give us all discerning minds. Keep our hearts centered on the common good of our community, especially the needs of our most vulnerable neighbors. In our discussions, give us clarity and understanding of differing views. In our voting, give us wisdom and integrity. Cause us to be good stewards of the resources at our disposal, whether our time, talent, or money. Bind us together in unity, compassion, and justice. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. And now, Councilor Buchan, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ready? Begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Prior to the meeting, you heard how to use the public forums. That is for public input and also for a hearing when we have testimony provided. And you were also told how to address the council as councilor, but he didn't share with you how to address the mayor. I really would prefer the Canadian term, your worship, but actually, as long as you don't call me late for dinner, I'm good. Any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to presentations, and we have a presentation first by our streets and library regarding the naming of streets this year.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we did a contest this year at the Children's Library, and we have an award tonight for the winner of our contest. This young lady, it's Nora Moore. Stand over here. And then this is her dad, Cody. We had about 75 applicants that turned in whatever theme they wanted to name the storms, and then we went through, and so we have a prize that we were hoping you would present to them.
Okay. We are really proud of you for coming up with all those great names for winter storms this year. And so we have a loader / plow for you. Love Nora.
The theme that Nora picked was ladies' names this year, so we have a list of 10, and we're excited to use them. The first storm was named after her that we had this last week. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Speaking of snow.
Didn't we just do this last time? Yes.
Deja vu.
must have too much snow talk. Oh.
Oh, that was a good. Oh, no, I lost it. Hang on.
While he's working, I'm going to share with you the storm names: Nora, Hilda, Millie, Lily, Anna, Grace, Allie, Tracy, Masa, and Tina.
Sounds like a wild winter coming.
It's been a busy one already.
There's a song in there somewhere.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'd like to bring forward tonight the 22-23 snow plan. I have an overview of the snow plan, and then I have some slides I'd like to show to kind of just show some of the struggles that we have. It's a good opportunity for people to see what we're fighting with these storms. We've plowed twice we've had 2 storms in mid-November. We went out once to clear arterials, just so we could put some de-icer product down. The storm of last week has been, kept us busy. We have 2 shifts that start this time of year. Normally about Thanksgiving weekend is when we split our team up, and we have a day and night shift. Our day shift works from 6 a.m. to 2:30 on a normal night. The night shift works 3 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. If we have a snow event where we have to do a citywide plow or we start plowing, our shifts change from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m., 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. So we have 24 hours a day coverage. Our machines don't shut off. We literally just switch the operator and they keep going. So we have 21 operators that work for the Streets and Engineering Department. If we have people out sick or family emergencies, we always accept the help from the Water Department and the Parks Department. They're really good to support us. We have 5 mechanics that are on shift at the same time to keep the equipment running. The equipment that we use, we have 4 loaders with gates. We have 4 road graders, 7 dump trucks and plows. We currently use about 5 of them at a time. If we need to get extra people, we will fill all 7. We keep the extras for reserve in case something breaks down. We have 4 de-icer trucks. We're putting our newest one together right now. All the parts have came in. So we've always had 3. This will be the first year we have 4 in our arsenal. 2 sand trucks and 1 salt truck. This is pretty much the team that we have. We utilize office staff, even engineering staff and mechanics if need be. That is a picture of the equipment that is sitting there ready to go at a moment's notice. Again, it's running 24 hours a day on an average snowstorm. So the conditions we go with, condition red is when there is 4 inches snowfall on the roadway or 3 inches of snow and more coming. So this is normally when we would start with a full citywide plow. Once we've gone 3 to 4 inches, that's when we start to plow. Condition yellow is normally 0 to 2 inches of snowfall, a lot of frozen road conditions, and so that's more of a de-ice or a sand battle. We might have to plow off the hills. Condition green, the roads can be dry, cooler temperatures, sometimes wet. We can, and that would just be de-icing normally is our effort there. In our snow plan, these are all of our priorities bunched up together. In the red is the arterials. That is our first line of attack. The yellow is our collectors in hills, and then the green is our residentials. So when we're doing our arterials, like last Wednesday, we actually spent 24 hours, 3 plows to keep the arterials and collectors open for the motoring public. The snow kept coming. We had, in order to put sand or de-icer down, we have to get to bare pavement or as close to it as we can for it to be effective. Once we make the call, or I make the call that we're caught up on the arterials and the collectors, hills, we will actually move to the residentials. At this moment, we get a lot of people that call when we move to the residential areas. That is when our map is active. When we're doing the arterials, collectors, and hills, the map that we have currently, there's not a way for us to really differentiate. And so it looks like the map's doing nothing. That's because we're doing the arterials still. We haven't moved. Once we move into the residentials, you'll see different quadrants of town turn to different colors, stating where we've been and where we're moving to. I want to use a couple slides in here because they kind of represent what we went through this last week, but not as deep. This was a 3 to 4 inch storm, and it rained, and then we ended up with the wet snow to move. You can see in that image, there's a picture of a berm up next to the white truck. So that loader has already been there. He's backed up trying to grab a second grab at it. Once it gets that close to the mailboxes, it's really hard for us to grab it. We tried, the gate was down the first time, it's still down, as you can see in that picture. Again, we try our best to stay away from the cars and the driveways, but you can see in this picture the size of the machines. We're not going to get that close to that driveway because of where the car is on the street. So we encourage people in these snowstorms to move the cars off the street so we can get close to your curb and try and remove as much of the snow as possible. Here again, this is one of my least favorite photos, in my opinion. We're too close to a car, trying to get the extra snow away from the garbage can, the driveway, but because of the red vehicle, it's hard for us to do so. It's a great point, as the verbiage on the bottom there, the gates reduce the berm, they don't eliminate it. It's really hard in these storms like we've had the last week to get all of it. Just more pictures, this here is a straight clear shot, so we should have a good opportunity. It's hard for us when you go through a mailbox or a driveway, double mailboxes, an intersection, you start to carry a lot of snow. Here again, this last storm we had last week, 20 feet had filled up that blade that you're looking at from the loader. So you can see the distance we are going to have to carry the snow there. It makes it hard. It's got to go somewhere. This is not what we're trying to do. I show this as a bad example. Lots of snow, cars that never move, and we don't have a shot at getting anywhere near that driveway. This is very common throughout the city. Cars that never move, we ask, there is no street parking. That is in our snow plan. I mean, if the car is not moving, we would like it to be removed. That starts to look like a snow berm, and there is actually a chance, like with our night shift, that they would run into that car because it's hard to see it. So, and we do have code enforcement help us throughout the winter on moving these cars. It's normally after a storm. Per the snow plan, we don't do alleyways. We don't plow them. We try our best to gate them, but we do not go into alleys. They're not wide enough. Normally the overhead lines are too low for us to fit our equipment in. Like to remind that per the snow plan, we have an ordinance that it is the abutting properties owners' responsibility to keep their sidewalks clear. We do our best. We tell our guys to not push to where it rolls on the sidewalk. Sometimes it does. I mean, we really try hard not to roll it on the sidewalk. But it helps us also to know where the sidewalks are if they're cleared off by the public. In the snow plan, we speak to people plowing snow onto city streets. We have a lot of problems with it down on Sherman Avenue, East Sherman, Lakeside, businesses, residents. We remind people that we have our hands full with the snow that's already in the street. A lot of times they'll push it out there after we've been there and it makes a mess, and then we have to go back. Just another picture. We like to clean the snow berm on Sherman at night. There's less traffic and the cars are out of the way. We have, this is a picture of one of our sanding trucks and one of our de-icing trucks. We ask that you stay back. The sand falls, it bounces across the road and will actually chip cars' windows and things like that, so we ask that you don't follow close. The de-icer, we actually have people that pass us when we're spraying off the side. That's not good for your paint, so I would ask that you stay back and you don't drive through that. If you wash your car, it's going to be fine, but it makes it easier for the operators to put the product down if they have the room to work. So this is a quick video I'll show. We have a lot of people that question this formation. This was in the snow in November that we had. If you watch it, we actually have drivers in this formation cut between those trucks. So I just ask you to notice, they will actually try to cut between us. This is a daily thing. So that's a normal formation. We don't normally put dump trucks with the graders and things like this. This storm was before we had our rental equipment for the season. We try to follow behind that line of traffic on an arterial with a de-icer truck to get the product down right away so it starts to break up whatever's left. I just ask that people don't pass us on the left and they be patient. We will be done pretty quick. We choose this formation for public safety and our safety. We do the road all at once this way, and then we're done. But we do have people that try and cut through. This is our snowplow map. You can see the quadrants in gray. They aren't colored yet. You can go to the address at the bottom there, maps at Coeur d'Alene id.org snowplow, and we update that during office hours. So in the middle of the night, we don't have anyone at the desk that's updating that. We have to physically go and update that. So our goal as the town is growing is 40 hours. That is once we start a citywide plow, not from when we do arterials. So, if you have issues, you can go online. That's what you will look at there. Our office hours, we have someone sitting at the desk 7 to 3:30. If it's a storm, we're probably there 7 to 5:30, to be honest. There's a snow line number that you can call. That is a number that you leave a message on, and we will have someone call everybody that calls that line. You can also call us directly if you have a concern at the street department. That is my snow plan, to take any questions.
Thank you, Todd. Can you go back to the picture that shows the gates, reduce berms, but they don't eliminate them? You said that was your favorite slide?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right there.
The reason I wanted you to go back to that is I wanted to point out for our viewing audience and those here, from the driver's point of view, you can see just how difficult it is to see everything you need to see, avoid hitting cars and trash cans and other things that you may have left in the street, boats, whatever. It's really hard, particularly when you're trying to move along quickly and get a lot of work done. So I just wanted to emphasize that. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Yes. I'm having trouble with names tonight.
Thank you, Your
Dan?
Holiness. Yeah. Todd, we're getting some emails about people want to know why we don't do the odd even thing about getting the cars off the streets. And I know we've discussed that before, but maybe you can go over what the deal is.
So we've talked about it. It's a great question, Councilmember Gookin. We've talked about it. We do our snow removal 100% with staff that the city and Coeur d'Alene employs. We don't have enough people to do that. We would be in one neighborhood twice as long, and so we feel it would slow us down. That's the biggest reason. We don't have enough people. You know, I've talked to Spokane, and they have contractors to come in to where they split it up, and we don't currently do that. So staffing-wise, equipment-wise, we feel it would slow us down to get to every street.
And I do appreciate the reminder about getting the cars off the street and that we're using code enforcement, because, I mean, I passed those snowbergs too, and it's like, okay, that car obviously hasn't moved in a week.
Right.
Get it off the street, so, and the boats and all that other stuff, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just two things. I think you guys are doing a great job, doing your very best to keep up, and I really appreciate that. In the past, we've had conversations about, are there any resources throughout the community that you know of where folks who maybe, I don't know, you have a single mom or a person who's been injured that can't get out there and dig that car out to move it, that they can reach out to for assistance with that? Are you aware of any?
So we have actually reached out and called people before this, and I'm sorry to report the sheriff does not do it anymore. The senior center used to help out and do it. It's a program they don't do anymore. So my best suggestion that I would love to see is neighbors helping neighbors. I'm not aware of anyone at this point. There might be organizations that I'm not aware of, but the people that have done it in the past are not doing it right now.
Okay, that's too bad. Maybe some of our churches will get together and come up with a plan. That'd be great. My other question was, when you mentioned the map looks as though it's inactive at times when people go there, because you're just doing the arterials. Is there anything that explains that on the map that says we are just doing arterials to keep up with snow right now? Or do they have to just kind of figure that out?
Unfortunately, with this map, I was just talking with my admin assistant. I would like to look into a newer program. We've used this for many years. No, we cannot put information with it. So that is a frustration because we would like to get that information out there. So we are looking at a newer version, something that we could, you know, maybe a little more accurate to help spread the news.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You have a motion before you.
Well, I'll make that motion. Mr. Mayor, to approve the 2022-23 annual snow plan.
Second.
A motion second, further discussion, hearing none, all those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Opposed with nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Any announcements? Kiki?
Two things. One is that the library just approved their ethics and conduct policy. They are having great response from the community for the foundation's annual campaign, which is focused on early literacy and updating the children's library. And patrons checked out almost 30,000 items in the last month. Also, the Historic Preservation Commission has 2 openings on that commission right now. All the details on what that responsibility is, how often they meet, and the qualifications required are on the city's website. And so if you're interested in getting involved in that, please apply there.
Thank you. Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our request, the last meeting, we talked about this, but it wasn't on the agenda and it wasn't set for an action item. So I'm just requesting for the next agenda that we would place on their discussion as an action item for a council member to go back and pick up that committee work that we used to do. We were assigned to the ET meetings, and I would, at the time, when we discuss it, I'll talk about a rotating position so that all council rotates in and out. And so, and the ET is our executive team. So I'm just requesting that that be on the next agenda.
Okay. Anything else, Dan?
Yeah, so it's the holiday season, and I went to one of those church bazaars, and I saw something there, and it reminded me of you. And so I had to buy it and give it to you as an early holiday present.
God,
Kind of looks like you with a mustache and hair.
good day.
It's a soft gavel.
Isn't that wonderful? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Merry Christmas. Let's put him down on the end next time. Okay, I seek the appointment of Sally Shortridge to the Arts Commission.
Mr.
moved.
Oh, thank you. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Opposed with nay? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for approval of a consent calendar as presented, including Resolution 22057.
Second.
Good evening. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the consent calendar?
One thing.
Yes.
I just wanted to make a mention that for many years, I've talked about this non-motorized vehicle boat path, and with the incorporation of this new grant that may be potential, I just hope that Parks Department continues to look at that along the 3rd Street docks.
Other discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yep.
English,
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Okay, that item carries, motion carries. Move on to public comments. I'm going to read, since there are several tonight, I'm going to read your name and the next person to follow, so you can be standing up and ready to go. So the first person is Mary Angelfire. Welcome. The next one is Roger Ruddock. Go ahead.
Mayor Hammond, City Council members. First, I would like to direct the public's attention to bitshoot.com. The channel is Natural News, and the title is Dr. Tao Braun and the Health Ranger Talk Transhumanism, Artificial Intelligence Interference, and Pro-Human Strategy for Survival. And, you know, we all know the goal of Agenda 2030 is that there's only going to be 500 million people alive on the planet, they hope. But anyway, when December 1956, I was 4 years old. My pajamas caught on fire, and 51% of my body was burnt with 2nd and 3rd degree burns. After I received the sacrament of extreme unction 3 times, then the priest got a heavenly message. He told my mother, and later on, when I got home, she imprinted it on my DNA. That's a biological fact, brucelipton.com. And to defrag false belief systems, it's psych-k. I'm not sure. But anyway, then my mother imprinted it, and what the God had told the priest and then told my mother, which he imprinted on me, is Mary will not die. She's burnt with the sign of the cross. God will save her for a special purpose. October 1988, God revealed that special purpose to me. He didn't intuit, I didn't hear any voices. Mary, don't worry. I'm going to use you to wake up the entire world church. And I go, you go right ahead, just don't let me know what you're doing, because this marriage is sucking the life out of me and I'm losing faith in the church. And then January 14th, 1991, I received my hateful divorce papers, Kitsap County, file number CV-3-00028-5. And I was horrified. I couldn't breathe. I had to sit down. And as I was reading, God intuited to me, hey, Mary, who's more important, me or your 2 kids? And I said, well, you are, God, but you're freaking me out. You see what I'm reading? I'm about ready to go through absolute hell, and I'm not ready for today, so you got your answer. I got to lay down. And as soon as I closed my eyes, I had this really long projector-like vision, and I wrote it down. The last 4 things I saw was a face of Saddam Hussein, an unbloody dagger, an unlaunched missile, and the face of an ancient American Indian. That was 4 years before I knew anything about American Indians. It was 2 days before the first Gulf War, and it was 1 month after Chief Oliver Looking Horse of the 19th generation carried the cycle White Buffalo Calf Woman Pipe, and a delegation of Lakota and Dakota Sioux elders went to Baghdad. The first thing. Seconds remaining. Okay, and so I put out my fleece, which was, if these 3 things are true, then God will miraculously heal my 3rd-degree burn torso scars, and I believe that's what I'm going to get for Christmas, is no scars, where a bathing suit covers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's good to see you again, Mary.
Yes, it's good to be here.
Roger? Yes, sir. And after Roger, Cody/Nora Moore.
I just wanted to first thank you for the opportunity for public comment. It's an honor to be able to speak here. I'm speaking regarding the Indian Meadows development. My wife and I are residents of Indian Meadows, that neighborhood. We chose to stay there because of its charm. And I join my neighbors. There's a a lot of us in the neighborhood who are concerned, and we're asking you to preserve that unique portion of the city. The city's own, I think it's called the Coeur d'Alene New Comprehensive Plan, identifies various areas of the city for protection and preservation based on their qualities. And those qualities include the age of the neighborhood, its uniqueness compared to other areas, the existence of urban forests, and simply its neighborhood identity. Those are the words from the document. There are many alternatives that would allow Indian Meadows to retain those qualities that identify and qualify it as a unique neighborhood identity. And that neighborhood deserves the preservation and protection that document refers to. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
I think the next one were the presenters of the storm. The next one you called were the presenters of the storm.
Oh.
Nora and Cody.
Don Schmidt, and then after that, Suzanne Knudsen.
Thanks for taking our input. I spoke at the planning committee about the Indian Meadows issue. I'm basically in favor of Coeur. I think it's really a neat project on the prairie there. I just want our pine paradise to be preserved. I have a couple of specific concerns about egress and entrance to that area. The one that really bothers me the most is concerning Appaloosa, which is the southmost street headed for the south end of Coeur. That goes through Woodside, which is a residential circle. If there's a red light on Atlas at Arrowhead, that's the street that I live on, everybody's gonna head straight out Appaloosa and head north on the Coeur main road, or come through Moccasin or go through Buckskin to get up there. You guys, I think I distributed some maps here so you have an idea about what I'm concerned about. I have one idea about this. I'm gonna come to all the meetings when they decide how to do this development. It seems to me that if they would just put a reasonable circle at the end of Arrowhead and Appaloosa with, R8 zoning, and put a couple hundred people at the end of Arrowhead and Appaloosa or Woodside, you'd end up with about the same kind of neighborhood that we have right now. But if you allow 12,000 people to funnel through our neighborhood to the south and the east, it's not going to work without stop signs or something. We've already got a traffic jam on Atlas. I just wanted to let you know how I felt about it.
Thank you. Suzanne Knudsen, and next is Lori Robb.
Good evening. Thanks for having us tonight. I'm another concerned resident of Indian Meadows, and we're trying to spread it out so we're not all here on the night that it actually comes to you from the planning department. But on October 11th, my name is Suzanne Knudsen, and I live at 4208 West Appaloosa Road in Indian Meadows. And on October 11th, I attended the CDA Planning and Zoning Commission meeting with about 25 of my neighbors. We spent 4 hours listening to the Kootenai Land Company and the city planning commissioners talk about a huge project that will affect thousands of people who live off of Atlas Road, including us who live in Indian Meadows. And it will affect us because it's a high-density development. It will affect us because the city would like 5 points of ingress and egress into the neighborhood along Atlas, even though the developer is only required to have 2 points of ingress and egress based on code and based on their proposed zoning and size. Some of my neighbors have knocked on doors in the neighborhoods to inform folks about the project and get their opinions about it and its anticipated effect on our neighborhood if the streets are made connectors into this high-density development. On November 6th, I walked the Woodside neighborhood that's directly south of the proposed development, and from the 30 residents that I spoke with, 2 elderly neighbors actually said to me, quote, "I'm glad I'm old and will most likely not live to see this actually happen in my community." Some of those people have lived in this neighborhood for 40 years. A couple of other neighbors told me that I was wasting my time by talking to the city council. They told me that the city council is not going to listen to me. They told me that the city council doesn't care about us, and I am not of that mindset. I know that you care because you're up there. You ran, you have spent your own money to get into these elected positions, and you accept the responsibility that you have as city council members, and I'm grateful for you. And I know that you care. Maybe it's more of that you might not know because you don't live in our neighborhood. But I don't know why my neighbors think that the city council members don't care. But please keep caring. Please care about our quality of life, our streets, our families, our neighborhoods, my neighbors, my elderly neighbors, whose driveways we do plow. We do help our neighbors in our community. And there's not a lot of on-road parking in Indian Meadows. Just drive down there. We have nice, long driveways, so we don't have to park on the road. But Indian Meadows is a heritage neighborhood that honors the Native American history and grit in Coeur d'Alene. Our streets are Appaloosa, Arrowhead, Nez Perce, Buckskin, Moccasin, Broken Arrow, Lodgepole. We have horses and other livestock. We have gardens and heritage trees. We care for our land and our people. I live on Appaloosa, which is named after the state horse of Idaho. And I'm watching a massive development overtake the beauty of the Spokane River's Edge in a development called River's Edge. Anyway, I know this is going to happen, but I just wanted to say thank you for caring. Please keep caring.
Thank you. Lori Robb, please hold any applause.
Mayor, if I can also interrupt really quickly, the timer is having a little difficulty tonight, so if they just listen to the voice over the speaker, he'll give you a 30-second warning.
Thank you. And after Lori is Holiday Saunderson. Welcome, Lori.
Hi, thank you. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I just want to say a few things. I live in Indian Meadows, and Indian Meadows is a unique and long-established neighborhood. Many of the property owners have lived here for 30 to 40 years. The things that make our neighborhood so special will be negatively impacted by our roads, which would be Nez Perce, Arrowhead, and Appaloosa, being extended into Coeur, especially when I looked at the map of the drawings that the developers submitted. I think if it might be possible to maybe relocate that school that's supposed to be at the southeast portion and put it more towards Hanley, because Hanley is more designed for the traffic than any of the roads that go in and out of Indian Meadows.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Is there another Saunderson right behind you? Yes. Signed up? Okay. She going to speak for both of you?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Then that would be Kathleen Herderth would be next.
Okay. Go for it, but I'm not speaking.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I'm Holiday Sanderson. My husband and I have lived off Atlas between Arrowhead and Nez Perce for almost 23 years. We live to the east of Indian Meadows and to the west of Atlas in Queen Anne. So I understand that there's an examination of the traffic patterns to cut over to Hutter via Atlas. With all the growth to the north, the traffic on Atlas has increased far too much. If you cut through our neighborhood, to connect Hutter to Atlas, then the impact is going to be to turn our neighborhood, which has been calm and quiet for 23 years, into an undesirable and unsafe racetrack. So I ask you not to use Appaloosa, Arrowhead, and Nez Perce as a Hutter-Atlas link. Please develop other options, because a safe city is what's in your vision of Coeur d'Alene. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Teresa Potts, and then Dan. The last part is Plesky, but I can't read the first part.
Thank you all for listening to us. I also live in Indian Meadows, and I have some concerns regarding the Coeur development. We've been a quiet neighborhood for over 48 years. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose the trees and bushes that beautify the streets and give shelter to the wildlife. I don't want to live with noisy, speeding traffic. I don't want our east-west streets disturbed. Surely there is a way to design the streets in Coeur that would avoid losing these things that we enjoy in our neighborhood. Thank you for listening. My hope is that the council members will put its weight behind the solutions for the concerns I've brought up.
Thank you. After Dan is, surprise, surprise, Justin O'Connell.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, great to see you. My name is Dan Chapleski. Sorry you couldn't read that. I too am from Indian Meadows.
How do you spell that, Dan?
I'm sorry?
Give me your last name. I want to know how to spell it right.
Chapleski, C-H-A-P.
Okay.
L-E-S-K-I. I too am from Indian Meadows. You're obviously getting an earful here tonight, and I think that's kind of testimony to the neighborhood that we have. I'm newer to the neighborhood. I've only been there for a couple years, but I've been inspecting homes in this area. I'm a home inspector for 20 years now, and I've literally been in and out of every neighborhood multiple times throughout these last 2 decades, every neighborhood in Coeur d'Alene. And I can tell you there's not a place like Indian Meadows, which is why I chose to make Indian Meadows home when I decided to move my family down from Cougar Gulch. And so I really just want to continue what others are saying, and please consider the special uniqueness that it is. There's not another neighborhood like it in Coeur d'Alene. Making thoroughfares through Indian Meadows to access new, dense housing would be a sad sacrifice, not only for those who have made Indian Meadows home. Obviously, there's a lot of people who've been there for a long time, and it's been a great place to maintain their homes, to live their lives, and to stay there. But I believe that alternatives can be found rather than making thoroughfares through our neighborhood, changing the character of our neighborhood, while still allowing for the growth that we understand is necessary. So I know that we're a little early in the cycle here, but I think we all want to impress upon you how special our neighborhood is and ask you to do what you can to help preserve it. Thank you.
After Justin, Andrew Hall.
Dear Council, Your Worship, I commend you. I asked you from this podium not long ago to tear down the random mound of debris, Mount Hink, and you did. I wasn't even able to get my Save Mount Hink shirts printed. Central Planning likes to play both sides. Great work, thank you. I kind of have a little bit of nostalgia now for Mount Hink. It's funny how that works. But now you're wondering how much longer you're going to have to deal with me, and how much money I am making doing this. Somewhere between $700 billion and $1,300 million. Central Planning is only good for the benefits. Council, the Meals on Wheels program nationwide are strapped for cash. They're facing increased demand, limited cash. I have it on good authority that the Meals on Wheels budget shortfall starts at the federal level. The big guy needed the Meals on Wheels cash for Ukraine. Kidding. The truth is the program can continue with adjustments for inflation if it starts paying the big guy 10%. Everyone knows the big guy gets 10%. This is how it's got to be moving forward. We can get those Meals on Wheels funds flowing again. Otherwise, we're going to need to make up the shortfall ourselves. Your Worship, do you or council have any idea where in the city's $123 million budget we can get $15,000 for Meals on Wheels? It's so the children and seniors don't starve during the cold, dark winter. And it is cold and dark out there. If I were $15,000 for the Meals on Wheels program, where would I be? I know. The Arts Commission. It puts the objects up all around town. Is that $500,000 per year? I'm hoping that the fund you just top off every year and not actually $500,000 every year. Either way, I move we reallocate $15,000 from the $500,000 object budget to Meals on Wheels for the needy. Second, now I know one of the city's goals is to have world-class objects, but why don't we think big and have world-class weather? Maybe we can reallocate the $500,000 to Bill Gates. He's going to spray dust in the atmosphere to block out the sun for some reason. Excuse me. Excuse me, for the greater good. Let's try to partner with Bill to get rid of all these clouds that are hanging around all the time and truly be the Hollywood of the North. All right, so what do you say? $15,000 for the needy seniors and children's, or for the objects? Which will it be? I guess we can always ask Santa Claus for the $4.50 per meal. Santa it is. Now, I did want to pitch an object. It's a piece of cake. I call it Marie Antoinette. It's right there.
30 seconds remaining.
Maybe we can print it in the library at the 3D printer that's for free. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Hall. Is Catherine also going to speak?
She is. Good evening. My name is Andrew Hall. I live also in the Indian Meadows neighborhood. I'm a firefighter paramedic for the City of Spokane Fire Department, and there's a reason why we live in Indian Meadows. This is my daughter Evelyn, by the way. Our property borders the field that is slated for development, the Coeur development. I want to start off by saying development is great. Development is huge. It's responsible to grow the city, but it's important that we pay attention to the neighborhoods that we have already in the existing neighborhoods. It's all over Coeur d'Alene. We have unique neighborhoods, and Indian Meadows is no different. It's safe and quiet. There's walkers, cyclists, horseback riders you see on a nightly basis, and that's what we feel safe to do that because there's limited traffic in and around that area. We are concerned that the growth for this new development that includes our residential streets will exceed what we would consider a safe parameter for our children to ride bikes. Like, I grew up in a neighborhood where I could ride from street to street and ride all around and feel safe because it wasn't a through street. It was all residential, but it wasn't through. Having to put stop sign to stop sign one street at a time on her or on my son, it just doesn't seem, that's not the neighborhood that we moved into. That's not where we want to raise our children. We're asking you to care about our neighborhood. You've heard that a bunch already, and we've only lived there 4 years, but we want to live there for 44 years. Like, we are invested in this property, in our neighborhood, and we don't want to see what we've come to love in these 4 short years disappear at the whim of a new neighborhood. And I feel like this is a good opportunity to set the precedence for future growth in Coeur d'Alene. We're going to continue to grow. I hope we do, and that's really important. But it shows the rest of the city that you guys are willing to stand up and defend the neighborhoods that are already existing and manage the growth in a responsible way. So we want to thank you very much, and please consider our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Catherine? Next is Rebecca Cotter.
Mr. Mayor and the City Council, thank you for listening to us tonight. And you heard a lot of my neighbors and you heard my husband, and we just keep having these same concerns. That's why we're here in full force, is because we are, really wanting to make a change for this. We don't want our streets to be through streets. I grew up in a residential neighborhood in Reno, Nevada, and my mom and dad let me ride my bike up and down the street safely. It was a quiet street, and I bought a house in Post Falls, and when we got married, we aimed to move into Indian Meadows. We waited for the perfect house because that's the perfect neighborhood. We moved in there. We were very fortunate. We border the beautiful alfalfa field there, and we love our views. We're really going to miss our views, but I really want a safe place for my son and my daughter to ride their bike. Right now, the way it is, I'd say yes, go ahead. Ride your bike up and down the street, stop sign to stop sign, yield sign to yield sign, because it's safe to do so, and I feel okay with that. If we make Nez Perce and Appaloosa and Arrowhead through streets, the amount of traffic is not going to be safe for my kids to ride their bikes, and that's not what I want. If you look at the Coeur d'Alene Public Golf Course neighborhoods, they get a lot of traffic of people going through to the Croc Center and those, strip mall area towards Winco, that's area there. They can't handle the traffic, and I feel bad. You don't see kids riding their bikes on that street. You don't see people walking because it's not safe because of the amount of traffic. And I don't want that to be our neighborhood as well. That's why we chose where we live. I want to preserve it for him, for her, so that we can raise our family in a nice, quiet, residential neighborhood. We've worked really hard to live where we are, and we want to stay where we are. And we love our neighbors, and we are a very friendly community. Neighbors help each other out there. We help snowball our neighbors' yards. I'm getting firewood for our neighbor because he can't afford it. We have a very close-knit community in Indian Meadows, and please help us preserve our streets and our neighborhood. Thank you very much, Council and Mr. Mayor, for hearing us tonight.
Thank you. Rebecca? Or Terry Cotter? Okay, John Pulsifer? And then the last one is Tyler Gabriel. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, you're in a tough spot. I used to think it would be really fun and an honor to be a city council member, and then you're in such a tough spot. You have neighbors saying, don't build this here in our backyard, and then really you have people saying, don't build the high condos, and I know council member Gookin said, hey, let's look at the height restrictions again. I just encourage you to look at the comprehensive plan. The city staff and the community members spend a lot of time working on the comprehensive plan, so I encourage you to do that, and I think you can come up with good compromises for these things. I'm not speaking for or against this development that most people are speaking about, but I did just want to encourage you to do that, because I was a little bit alarmed when it seems like some council members have made comments like, let's look at this again, even though the comprehensive plan just passed like last year. So, but thank you all for your service, and we'll see you next time.
Tyler?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Council members. Longtime listener, first-time speaker. And I apologize up front if some of my information is just off of what I read in the newspaper this morning, but I wanted to talk about the increase in some of the fees, specifically the short-term rental fees. By the way, my name's Tyler Gabriel. I live about 7 blocks from here. Been operating a short-term rental for about 2 years, little one. And I've been paying my...
Mayor, excuse me, that is a public hearing item, so that comment could come in at the public hearing time.
I can talk later?
Yes.
Okay.
Sign up for the other sheet.
My bad. Sorry.
Thank you, Tyler. Okay, we'll move on to what we call other business. This is the impact and annexation fee study. Hillary Patterson, our community planning director. Welcome, Hillary.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. Yes, I am here before you this evening asking for your authorization for us to enter into an agreement with Welch Comer and their subconsultants to update the city's development impact fees, the associated capital improvement plans for police, fire, parks, and circulation, and also update our annexation fees using budget from our development impact fee fund. So, as you are very well aware, our fees are out of date and need to be updated and increased to be compatible with our neighboring communities and to account for the development in our area as well as the projects that are needed to keep pace with development. We have our new comprehensive plan that was adopted earlier this year that really set the framework for us to update the impact fees, helping us identify the growth in the area and our future land use map showing how we will develop as a community, and that's helping us with these impact fees. The request for qualifications was released in July, and we received 3 submittals for that. They were due in August. We met as city staff and had a selection committee with representatives from each of the departments, as well as John Ingalls, who serves on our planning commission. Our planning commission will be our development impact fee advisory committee, so he's representative of that. And Glenn Miles, the executive director of Kootenai Metropolitan Planning Organization also was an advisor. So we met to review the submittals, ranked those, and discussed the necessary scope of work, and determined that the preferred team was the Welch-Comer, FCS, and ITERRAS team, and decided to work with them on getting a scope and a budget to be able to bring forward to you for consideration. The team, so Melissa Cleveland is the project manager from Welch-Comer. She's worked directly with FCS and ITERRAS before. She worked for City of Hayden as their community development director and managed their impact fee update. So those three groups have worked together very well. FCS has done work for the city of Coeur d'Alene before they updated our water capitalization fees. And ITERRAS has worked with, actually FCS and ITERRAS have all worked with KMPO as well, and KMPO speaks highly of them. The staff report outlines the scope of work and the meeting schedule to get us to update our fees, so I won't go into details on that. And as I mentioned, our own planning commission will serve as our advisory committee as we move forward, and Glenn Miles has agreed to be an advisor for the process. So as you are aware, this is a priority for the city to update these fees, so we're definitely looking forward to moving forward on this quickly. The consultant team is ready to go as soon as the ink is dried on the agreement. I did want to thank our own Sean Holmes, senior planner, for all of his efforts on the request for qualifications and working on the scope of work. That's been great, as well as Fire Chief Greif and Police Captain Hagar and Bill Greenwood, Chris Bosley, Bonnie Jensen, Troy, and Randy for helping us through this process as well. We have Melissa Cleveland is here from Welch-Comer if there are any specific questions on the scope, as well as Sean Holm. But with that, I conclude my presentation and just ask for council to support this request to enter into this agreement and authorize budget appropriation of $153,200 from the Impact Fees Fund, and direct staff to enter into the agreement with Welch-Comer and their sub-consultants for services described herein. With that, I stand for questions.
Woody?
So what kind of a time frame? When will this be ready to go?
Well, we are looking at, I think Melissa's ready to start this week with gathering data, and we'll get the meeting scheduled right away. So we're looking to have the fees updated in 2023.
A year?
No, it'd be before that, but within the year. So I forget exactly, maybe Melissa and Sean know specifically, but I think it was, is it 8 months? 10 months, okay, 10 months. Yep.
Really, that's the best we can do, huh?
Well, these fees are out of date, and they have to update the capital improvement plans as well, and help build those for fire and police, because we don't have existing CIPs for those two departments, and then updating the annexation fees, so it's a lot of work.
And impact fees are on growth,
Yes.
basically. So we're going to lose a year on growth impact fee adjustments, give or take. I mean,
But then
lose
we'll
or
be
not
good to
get it.
go, and then they're gonna help us also have it set so that each year we'll have an incremental increase to keep pace with development costs.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a couple things, Hillary. I know we've discussed this at NIBCA Joint Government quite a few times, and I don't think that you said how long ago was it that the city of Coeur d'Alene reviewed their impact fees?
Ours are 2005 was the last time, yep.
And
And the
I-
annexation fees are even older, they're the
And I-
1998, so.
And I think, and you may recall this, most of the other cities that are there have updated their impact fees, and they're substantially higher than what Coeur d'Alene has at this time.
That is correct, so we all know we need to update them, and the fees will be going up.
And most of the folks, Developers Council and Joint Government through NIBCA, have said they don't object to increases in impact fees as long as they're fair, is what I hear all of the time. So this study, it's going to incorporate the input from our development community on how and where these fees should be placed, and to assure that they have a voice in being fair with them. Is that how that will work?
That is correct. So you saw in the staff report in the scope of work, there are multiple meetings with the stakeholder groups, with NIBCA to meet with them and make sure they understand the fees and can have a say in that.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dan?
Thank you, Your Eminence. I just have a general question I want to throw out there. So you have your committee members listed here. Why were no council members on that committee?
I guess it's just, this is kind of the process we selected. We didn't maybe it's an oversight, didn't think to involve a council member in the process because it's kind of a rudimentary.
Well, I do think
Process for
that we
updating.
matter and that we're kind of decision makers, and it would have been appreciated from this seat if there would have been some elected officials on the committee. I see this as a pattern and something that's been going on in the city for quite some time now, that typically there's a committee put together to look at something, and yet, for some reason, staff chooses not to ask any council members who represent the public to serve on it. I don't think there's anything that hinky that went on here. I mean, I think you guys followed the process, RFQs went out, but it just seems to me to be a little bit disrespectful, not specifically to you, Hillary, but just to staff in general, that we are overlooked when it comes to staffing these committees.
Apologize for that. That was not the intent, and obviously the ultimate decision is council on who you would select for this consultant team.
Mr. Mayor, I would just say that kind of ties into my earlier conversation about council serving on the executive team as a liaison, so that the ET team that makes a lot of our decisions for us, which we do appreciate their input, they're professionals, but we would be a good voice on that. Now's a good time for me just to add that in, that this is an example that council could offer or suggest that they serve as a liaison to some of these committees. Thank you, Hillary.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I would look at it a bit different. I don't feel overlooked. We have all our homework, we have all the information we want, and when the decision time comes, it comes before us and we make a vote, and sometimes it goes up or down. On the other hand, I do agree with Christie that as far as having a rotating representative on the executive team probably makes some sense, and maybe it would avoid some feelings that way. So I guess I would clarify both. ET suggestion's a good idea, but I also think we're fine with this.
We need this very much. I would appreciate a motion approving this.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to approve Resolution Number 22058, providing authorization to enter into a contract with Welch Comer for the impact and annexation fee study using the Impact Fees Fund.
Post haste. Can I get a second?
Second.
Have a second from Dan. Will the clerk take the roll, please?
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
Yes.
Coogan,
Yep.
English,
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Okay, next we have our I almost said Human Rights Director, Human Resources Director, Melissa Tosi, for some human resources stuff.
Right. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The personal rule amendments also go with the contract amendments that are on the agenda tonight. I can kind of talk about all of them together. They're all related, and they're all pretty much repetitive, making the same updates. City staff, finance, administration, HR, we started earlier this fall having some of the discussions about possibly going from a semi-monthly payroll to a biweekly payroll, and how that change would affect our personnel rules in our employee groups. And the year just happens to line up perfectly to make that transition in 2023. And so we started having those discussions. We started in ET and had our department heads go back to their staff and run it through them and see what kind of questions they had and bring those back, work through some of them, and then had some meetings with the employee groups and brought through some of those questions, and ultimately got a green light from all the employee groups that they are in favor of moving forward with a biweekly payroll, which is really great because we think that it's going to streamline our payroll process tremendously, because our pay weeks are going to line up with our work weeks. So the personnel rule amendments tonight are just basically updating the personnel rules in the sections that address our pay periods. And the same with the contract amendments. So in the Rule 5 compensation, in the personnel rules, it's just changing our current semi-monthly payroll process to a biweekly payroll process and the wording around that, changing from 24 payrolls to 26 26 payrolls to 24. And then we just added some language that talks about separation pay and just some general federal language with that. The attendance and leaves, we updated the employee contracts with vacation and sick and the personnel rules. We are going to keep our current leave accruals the same over the 24 pay periods, and then that third pay period in the year, in the 2 months that we have the extra payroll, they won't accrue at a accrual, sick and vacation accrual. We're just going to leave it as is, so we updated that language. And then in the department head and exempt employees section, it was the same thing. It's just repetitive, updating their sick and vacation accrual as well. There are a few housekeeping updates throughout those sections with a couple typos and some contract language matches. It was all pretty basic. And again, the amendments were all taken through executive team. They were all approved through Lake City Employees Association, the Police Association, and the Fire Union. And we think that changing to a biweekly payroll process is going to help streamline our payroll process, which is only one person. We have a lot of errors based on our payroll week ending in midweek, and it creates a lot of having to look back in work weeks. So we think that is going to help tremendously. And that's pretty much it. It's just kind of addressing the language to move forward to a biweekly process. Do you want me to move forward to the contract amendments? It's repetitive. The only other change with the fire contract amendment, we are updating their FLSA pay cycle to start over January 1st, 2023, and changing it from 24 days to 14. And then the Police Association, the same thing, and they're already on a 28-day work cycle, so it'll match up perfectly with the biweekly pay schedule. So that's all. Everything else is just matching up.
So in essence, we're switching to a biweekly payroll, and in order to do that, we have to make some changes to ensure that accruals for vacation and sick leave and compensation all remain as we've already agreed to.
Yes, and the LCEA contract will be addressed through the personal rule language updates, and then just those main contract amendments with police and fire is all that we needed to do.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you're going to go to a
You missed your excellency.
Start over.
Thank you, Your Holiness. You have, you're going to a biweekly schedule. There's normally 52 weeks in a year. Some years have 53 weeks. So on that 27th Friday, what's going to happen to salaried employees? Are you going to basically, and there's no language in here regarding this, is a salary employee just going to miss a paycheck?
So we looked forward, and I think our payroll specialist said that the first year that happens is like 2027, and she created some options that we still need to look at. So it does happen every so many years, and we still need to address how we will do that, but we will not pay people. We'll
Okay,
fix
well,
it.
I'm disappointed it's not in here. I mean, you're literally kicking the can down the road here to deal with it later. The only reason I bring it up, and the only reason I know about this, is because at the county a few years ago, this was a major issue.
Yeah.
You know.
And she came from the county, so she experienced it. And we just didn't have time to dive into that part of it, but we are aware of it. And she has been a huge help with the biweekly transition and what that all means through she's dealing with our payroll software, which is different than the county's. And we just need a little bit of assistance with Springbrook with all that. We'll get it all figured out. We have a little time to do that, but it's biweekly is by far the most common pay process. And we got a little time to figure it out, and we will.
Okay, well, I just wanted to give you a heads up, and it seems like you already know about that. It would be better, I'd feel better if the language was in here, because I'm afraid that, people change, jobs, people move on, and I don't want all of a sudden there to be a surprise in 2027 or whenever this happens that.
And I'll probably bring it forward just after the first of the year, once we get the transition all ironed out, once we know kind of how our software will work with it. I'll bring it forward as soon as I know, so we won't wait that long, but as soon as I have better information and the options, I don't think we need to run what that will be through the employee groups, because I think we'll know what that is. But I'll bring that forward and put it back, place that language in the personnel rules.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, you have a motion before you.
Mr. Mayor, I'll motion to approve resolution number 22-058, providing authorization to enter into a contract with, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the totally wrong place. Start over, Melissa. All your hard work, I started to go back to Welsh Comer. All right, I'm going to make a motion to approve resolution 22-059, approving amendments to Personnel Rule 5, Compensation Rule 11, Attendance and Leaves Rule 26, Appointed Officer Department Heads and Rule 27, FLSA exempt employees regarding the transition to biweekly payroll effective January 1st, 2023.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Aye.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Miller.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. And now before us, we have Melissa Tosi.
Right, and the collective bargaining agreements with police and fire, I pretty much covered all of that already. The sick and vacation are the same. The FLSA schedule is really the only thing unique to the contracts, so we are updating that to start over January 1st, and changing the fire cycle to a 14-day work cycle instead of a 24-day work cycle, which will match up to the biweekly pay cycle. Other than that, all those match up to what we already talked about. And police and fire both were in agreement to the changes.
Motion?
I would, Mr. Mayor, looks like
Yes.
nobody wants to read tonight. So
Right.
I would make a motion to approve resolution number 22060, approval of amendment number 1 to the agreement with the firefighters Local 710 International Association of Firefighters to agree to a biweekly payroll.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
Gookin,
Oh, yeah.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers.
Yes.
And the next one,
I'll just jump in there. Motion to approve Resolution 22061, approval of amendment number 1 to the agreement with the Police Officer Association to agree to a biweekly payroll.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Don't we have any questions for Melissa?
Yeah, I hope you're feeling better. I mean,
It doesn't sound good. Will the clerk take the roll, please?
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin.
affirmative.
And I would make a motion for, or no, that's,
No, go ahead. You're doing well.
no, the real estate, no, that's different.
Welcome, Randy.
Thank you, Your Honor, or Your Majesty, or whatever it is we're doing today.
Lord.
I bring before you a matter that you've discussed before, which is the purchase of a piece of property adjacent to the property on which the police headquarters building rests at this point. It has been a matter of discussion and planning for some time that the police building needs remodeling and expansion. There was an opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, to purchase a piece of property that's adjacent to the existing building. This slide shows you a plat of the area. This is where the police building is, and the vacant property is just to the north. A aerial photo shows here the police building, the parking lot. This property to the west is also owned by the city. This is water department buildings and the police buildings. This blank piece of property is what the police department would like to purchase for the remodel and expansion. This is a view of the property. It's pretty flat. There's the police building right next to it, and another view showing its width and the city property behind it. The purchase price, as indicated in the staff report, is $1,186,532 for 1.6 acre parcel. That money is going to be coming out of fund balance. And the way that works is this police department had savings from last year on salaries and other expenses. At the end of the fiscal year, that rolls over into fund balance. So it's really savings from the police department that is going for the purchase of this property. So I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, Your Lordship. Randy, could you just go over, because there's been controversies on the interwebs about public agencies purchasing property. So what are the steps? I mean, when we purchase property, it has to be done according to code, has to be an appraisal, has to be like fair market value. I mean, can you just do a quick rundown of how that works? Because I know it's not the same as people think.
It isn't, but there are no purchasing requirements when you're buying property, as opposed to selling property. The city cannot pay more than it's worth. An appraisal is not necessary, but some evidence of the reasonableness of the price has to be provided. And we've worked closely with Troy, who knows finances much better than I do. We've worked with the property owner to come up with a square foot price for this property that was reasonable, given the neighboring properties as well. Also, given the fact that this is a unique piece of property for the police department, if we don't get this piece of property and have to expand, it's not going to be next door to the police department. It's going to be someplace else. So this is very much a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
So we were kind of in a position where we had to buy, this is the property, the price was whatever the guy wanted to sell it for.
And he was reasonable about it. It was comparable. We looked at other properties, talked to other appraisers. We didn't get a formal appraisal, but that was a property that was the price was within the range of what we were seeing.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that this has been an ongoing discussion for quite some time, and hopes that we could acquire this for future expansion. Troy, can you talk about the build-out opportunities and how many years this piece of property will serve the city of Coeur d'Alene?
Well, we'll shine up the crystal ball. I would say that the value of this property is remarkable to the city because of the assemblage of what we have for a campus over there. The redoing of the existing facility to maximize its square footage is great. And parking is one of our biggest challenges, and this will keep it on that campus. So this administrator is totally excited about this acquisition. The price per square foot is a real number, but there's no other way that we can close this deal to keep that as a headquarters for the police department, keep it on one campus, use the infrastructure that's already there. The city has worked to acquire that property for many, many years. This mayor and previous mayor have written purchase offers on it and never gotten it to the finish line due to no fault of the city, in my opinion. It was just timing, family inherited the property, so all kinds of challenges to acquire this. So it's been on our docket for quite a while.
Now, I will just say, I was on the design review committee for council for the remodel of the police department. And I think the projection with this piece of property for growth was it would take us out at least in the next 30 years. I might ask the chief if I'm correct. It was 30 years, yeah. So, I mean, that's just something that we can't put a price on. We have to be able to grow long after we're all gone. So I appreciate the work that's been done on this. I'm certainly going to vote in favor.
Would you like to make a motion to that effect?
Or, I have to find my, okay, I got it here. I would make a motion to approve Resolution 22-602, approval of a real estate purchase and sale agreement with ETD Enterprises LLC for land abutting the police station.
Second.
The motion is second. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
Wood?
Yes.
Miller?
Aye.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Yep.
English?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. We now have the legislative fee increases, and we'll ask our Municipal Services Director to step up to the plate.
Thank you. Wearing multiple hats today. We do have some staffing constraints in my department, so
Actually, throughout the city, we're still suffering with some of the plague and the flu.
that's what I would call it.
Why don't you go home, Melissa?
Yes.
Has to be here for executive session.
Yeah.
Oh, oh, yeah, you wouldn't
gonna
want
be
to
a
miss that one.
We'll be in a confined space with you. That's
Ah.
great.
Yeah, here, leave the door open. Okay, well, I'm here to talk about fee increases. We have several departments coming forward, so it's easier to just have one person do the staff report and bring it all forward. We, again, have staffing limitations, so some departments are represented here tonight. Others were unable to make it due to illness, so we'll pinch hit as best we can. The Idaho Code does require that any fee increases above 5% must be approved by resolution and via a public hearing. So this is a public hearing tonight, legislative though, not quasi-judicial. So the fees were posted to the city's website for approximately 2 weeks. So I'm not going to go into every bit of detail. It's also in the council packet on the website, and you've received it in your council packet. So I'm just going to go over a couple highlights of why we're here tonight. Some of the fees and documents that you were provided include some removals, some language changes, some fees that aren't quite 5%, but it just makes it easier for staff to keep it all in one resolution and in one place so we know when things have changed and wording have changed and things have dropped out. So to begin, our building department hasn't approved or changed their valuation in several years. They're definitely behind other area markets. So they have transitioned to a valuation chart that is more in line with cities of Post Falls, Rathdrum, and Hayden. Mr. Lancey, the chief building official, had run it by the North Idaho Building Contractors Association in November, and there was no opposition to those fee changes. Those, again, are user fees, so we're hoping those fees pay for the services the city provides, so it doesn't have to come out of the general fund. The finance department is increasing the street light fee by 5%. They're trying to do that annually to keep up with costs. They are also talking about, they are changing their garbage chart. So we had a fee chart that was applicable when we had waste management as a contractor. When we turned over to Coeur d'Alene garbage, we started referring to things in different categories, and the fee chart just didn't align. So these fees are not a raise of fees, but rather a new chart that is consistent with the language they use with Coeur d'Alene garbage. The legal department has some fees in there related to administrative and appeal hearings. Several of those are kind of appeal hearings from planning and zoning items, so there's kind of a mish and match between legal and planning fees there. The library department is asking for a non-resident fee for card holders. They provided you a chart of several area fees for other libraries and community library networks. The $30 is in line with those fees and actually fairly low compared to some of the other fees, but it's based on an average property tax amount that they worked with Vonnie on to come up with that from our finance department. Municipal Services brought to you a sign code change in March, and with that sign code change, we changed the categories of temporary signs. As you know, before there were some categories that were based on content, which is no longer allowable. So now we have all temporary signs as one category, one fee. So this change provides us to reflect the one fee that we are currently charging. Parks and Recreation had several fees that they needed to increase based on staffing cost, equipment cost, and as you see, t-shirt costs. That's really important in the recreation world. So they do have several items that they have increased, but again, those are user fees. The planning department, because the zoning code has the short-term rental code that lives within that code, the short-term rental code shows up under their category, and it is increased based on the cost of that Granicus contract that we talked to you about a couple meetings ago. So that's in alignment with that. And again, with that Granicus contract for short-term rental, it's not only just going out and seeking the illegal permit holders, it's also going to be monitoring throughout the year and providing staff assistance with those type of enforcement issues for legal and illegal units. So additionally, the planning department adopted a new code regarding development agreements, and they needed to set a rate associated with that. And again, they've looked at staff time and cost associated with agreements and appeals, and all those items are within their fee structure. The police department has made a couple minor amendments regarding the removal of some fees for the training facility that they no longer allow or use, so those were no longer needed. And then additional increase in hourly rates based on their current costs. The water department, again, another user fee. They have fees associated with call out for services, tags that are very much employee-oriented costs. They have equipment and fuel costs that have increased, so they are requesting additional costs with those fees. A bulk user rate fee. They have some items that get used and broken regularly, so they needed to up those for the cost of replacement parts and pieces. And then the radio read setup is a specific fee for them that they are passing on to the end user. So again, this is a public hearing. I'll stand for questions. The staff that are here in the audience are available to answer your particular department questions. Then we ask you to accept public comments and then move forward with approval of these fees.
Any questions for Renata? Yes, Christie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I would like to say, I'd like to thank Kiki Miller for the questions that you submitted. It was very good on behalf of council, and it helped educate us on some of the background behind these fees, so thank you for that. Renata, I think the one that will be probably the most impactful for everyday people is going to be in the Park and Rec Department with some of these fees that come up. I certainly understand the discussion behind it, trying to keep up with the cost of hiring employees to service a lot of these events. Did you say that all of this will be on the city website, or how are we going to get it out to our users?
So it has been on the website. We did a notice in the paper for the public hearing and provided a link to this staff report, and it has been up there under the public hearing section for approximately 2.5 weeks now. And we do have a fee document on our website that will be updated to reflect these. And then again, each department, as they come in, will be able to let them know what the current rates are.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
I got a couple questions,
Oh, go
Renata.
ahead.
I think staff did a really great job of responding back to a lot of my questions, and I appreciate that. I still had some questions that weren't clear on, I know the short-term rental fee was one that I agreed that the current permit holders is the easy way to bill, and it does benefit them to get the non-compliant users in compliance. But I just wondered if there was a couple of other things that could be asked in there, and if you had a discussion about it. For example, going back to Granicus and saying, can we pay in draws on this amount? In other words, pay in advance to get the work done and then pay the balance at the end of March when some of those non-compliant folks have come into compliance and we've determined what the process is going to be. It feels like a little be a little bit more work, but I just feel like it's still not very fair to charge the short-term rental folks who have done the right thing more money for those who haven't. So I'm just wondering, that is maybe a draw on the invoice, or whether there's a way to borrow the funds from another fund, pay Granicus, then take it out and distribute it more evenly amongst the end of March permit holders.
So we brought the Granicus contract forward to council, and it's been approved, and we've entered into that contract, and we committed to that cost. So we pay Granicus for their service in one payment. That payment is coming out of the general fund, and the general fund will be replenished through the permit fee renewals in March. So that was the presentation to council previously. So our hope was that the program pays for itself. So all the costs associated with a permit or a license should be paid by those users. If council wants to utilize the general fund to supplement that permit or license, we can do that. It's totally up to you guys up there. We just were going on the direction of what we presented when we approved the Granicus contract. And this
Okay.
is the way to assure we'll get those funds back into the general fund.
So, and maybe it just wasn't clear in that the funds will come from the entire body of permit holders after the non-permit holders that are eligible apply. Is that, or are we going to use our current base of permit holders, not the new people
We
that
have to
come
use
in?
our current base for what we know. And then again, we're still working on that code development. So if there's any sort of ratcheting down on the number of permits, we just don't know that yet. So we can bring back fee amendments at any point in time through a public hearing as we determine more what the code is going to have. Again, we thought if there's going to be inspections required or any other costs associated with that program, we'll have to bring another fee amendment forward. So we're just making sure we're covering the Granicus cost for now, knowing that probably is going to have to come back before council if we have code development that requires additional costs.
Okay. I'm just, I agree, we agreed with the contract, and we can borrow from a fund, and we could pay them, and we could distribute it out to all permit holders at the end of March rather than whoever we have right now. That, I just am still feeling that it shouldn't be that the current permit holders pay for the non-permit holders, so I'll leave that at that. I don't know if we have anybody from Parks here. Really don't.
That is one department that's been hit pretty well with a little bit of illness, so Troy and I will try and help based on what they told us. So Troy might be able to fill in some more blanks if you want to ask your question. And again, if you guys are uncomfortable with any of these fees, we can pull them out individually and bring them back at a later date through another hearing. But if you want to throw it out there and see if Troy can answer.
Well, there was a few things. One is that some of the, I think the answer was that there used to be a 2-hour time block for using some of the facilities. And so I guess where I'm going with this is that the gazebo, the band shell, and some of those ancillary products within the park are often used by folks who are doing, a family reunion or something like that. So a $300 fee for a citizen of Coeur d'Alene who just wants to use the gazebo seems like a lot. And so maybe you can address that a little bit?
That would get you a reserved gazebo. So if you want to use the gazebo and not pay, and there's no one that has it reserved, you can go use the gazebo. So if you want to know exactly when you're going to use it, and you want to make sure that it is yours at that particular time, you pay a fee to go use it.
And that's regardless of whether you're, the Smith family reunion or a major event in the park. It's the same fee to use the gazebo. Okay, that just felt a pretty big price to pay for a family who lives in Coeur d'Alene and is a taxpayer, and they just want to have a family reunion in their park and use that facility. So I was just hoping that there was a workaround for that. Same on the alcohol permit fee. The alcohol fee is a fee that they pay to the city in order to have an event with alcohol. But in addition to that, they pay other catering permit fees, as well as having to have their own security that they pay for, and basically are running their own alcohol operation. So what is the fee that they pay to the city to do that for?
Well, the city gets to provide oversight on that as well, and we're going to continue to strengthen that because we have evidence that not all security is being fully carried out. So we're having to reinsure that security is doing their work, including work that our police department has had to do with some of that. So we're looking to limit how much of that we are providing, and the fee is a pretty good sized number when you get all those costs put into it.
Okay. Okay. So one other one was, and I think I spoke with Randy about this one, on the legal fees these are new items to cover some of the things that you're actually kind of overseeing a hearing on appeals. Is there some breakdown as to what those items might be so that they're not all just one fee for every single hearing?
No, there isn't currently proposed any breakdown. Those are reasonable estimates for the time I've put in. It doesn't happen very often. I think I've sat on 4 dog appeals, 1 sign appeal. I usually put in a lot of time, a lot more than would be reflected in these fees. So we're only trying to recover a portion of that.
Now, I don't have any problem with that. I guess where I'm coming from with that particular one is that if you have a $150 or $200, I don't have it right in front of me, I think it was somewhere in that range, and that's the price tag you have to pay to appeal something. If you prevail in that appeal, do you get your money back? Or I feel like in reading it and stepping back saying, boy, if I had a disagreement with something I was cited for, it would be a huge deterrent to have my say by coming in to tell my side of the story that my dog did bite somebody, and yes, they were taken out of, by code enforcement or animal control. But if the rest of the story was that the people that they bit were jumping over the fence into my yard, and I didn't get an opportunity to tell that side of the story. Obviously, that would probably happen. That was a bad example, but that would happen, I would hope, at law enforcement level. But I guess having to pay $250 to tell that story, and then even if you won, you're still out that money. It felt like a deterrent for somebody to have their say in an appeal process. So the smaller ones, I guess.
Yeah, there is no provision in the fee structure for a refund of those fees. There's nothing to prohibit that. But you're correct that, in my experience, the animal control officers, for example, on the dog cases, spend a lot of time investigating, spend a lot of time before they actually issue the citation. So most of the time, all of the evidence has been reviewed by the animal control officer before issuing the citation. So, I mean, if you want to provide for a refund if they prevail on appeal, that's certainly not prohibited.
Well, maybe we can talk about that at another time. I guess I am looking at, if it's just this one flat fee for, everything from a sign permit to a parking ticket to a dog to a planning and zoning issue, then the amount involved seems to be a deterrent to some and reasonable for others, so.
And again, it's a figure that we've come up with based on what the average amount of time we spend on these matters. So yes, it seems significant, but when you consider how much time we put in pre-hearing, during the hearing, with city officers coming to testify, cross-examination, sometimes briefing that has to be reviewed, it's a reasonable fee, but I certainly can see that some people would balk at that, may not even be able to afford that.
Okay, except, I don't have any other questions except for that I'd really like to see us take a second look at some of the park use fees, that legal fee, and possibly the structure of how we pay back the Granicus amount. So those are my comments.
Dan?
The only comment I have, I think there's reasonable justification for the things with the short-term rental fee, which is new, and my comment would be, we had to make a call. We, had the best, best price in a contract. We have a lot of community interest there. We've got to get going. And so I think that's a reasonable fee. I would, to start, I would note that like tonight, somewhere in the detail of the report talked about with the garbage fees, and that we actually for several years were able to maintain a flat fee because it was doing well. So I would think same thing with the short-term rental is that it, if we have a good turnout of people and all of that, we may not go backward on the fee, but we can keep it basically frozen for some time. So again, I think it's a reasonable package that have justification.
Dan?
Sure. Thank you, Your Majesty. Streetlight fees. We're increasing the streetlight fees. Does it balance? I mean, is our streetlight fund in balance, Mr. Tymason?
In balance meaning, does it cash flow?
Yes.
It does not.
We had discussed the streetlight fee a few years ago and moving it back into the general fund, because it's really not a utility, and we're not actually measuring the lumens that everyone gets. There's people who pay a streetlight fee on their monthly bill who have no streetlights on their street. And so why are we still charging a streetlight fee when I think that should be in the general fund? Anyone?
The streetlight fee is there to take care of that cost. We have 3 zones for it. There is not a guarantee that there is a streetlight on every street. We do it by zones in looking at public safety, the corridors that they go through. And the streetlight fund is about a it would be a general fund additional expense of approximately $760,000. That's approximately what we're spending, and with this increase, it'll be almost a break even as we look.
I understand the increase in everything. It's, Post Falls a few years ago moved theirs back into the general fund. And just concerned about our exposure to a lawsuit should someone decide that it's not kosher.
Seeing no further questions, I'm going to open up the,
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, excuse me.
I'm going to open the public hearing, and we have one person wishing to testify. Tyler, welcome.
Thank you for this opportunity. Apologize for my earlier
No problem.
faux pas. First of all, thank you very much for all the hard work you guys do. I understand this is not a job that gets a lot of positive praise, so I want to thank you for this. My concern for coming tonight is just talk about specifically the short-term rental fees. I think that the logic being, I understand we have to pay the contract. I think the logic being applied to the fees is maybe slightly flawed. I think penalizing approximately 100% increase in fees for people who are renewing their license, maybe a 50% is roughly increase in fees for new licenses seems flipped to me. I think that the fees should be recovered more from enforcement of those that have not been paying and get caught, and then the fines associated with that. I think that'd be a more logical way to lay out the recovery strategy to get the funds back that you need to pay the contract. I understand we have to enforce and we need a system to keep people doing the right thing, but to penalize people who have been doing the right thing seems counterintuitive to me. So I just ask the council to re-examine the logic used to create the fee structure and maybe consider applying more of a penalty approach to those who have not been on the up and up and rewarding those who have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's nobody else signed up to testify, so I'll close the public hearing. And now it is open for further comment or questions from the council. I don't see, I just teasing you. Dan?
Thank you, Your Grace. Renata, just, I know what Tyler said makes sense. How much fine would we need to collect to pay for the Granicus contract if we took that route?
I believe the Granicus contract is about $36,000. So if you divided it somehow between fee increase on permits and then fines, I'm not sure what you would base that on.
Well, I'm just trying to think. So it's 36K, and Hillary, we guessing between 600 and 800, or what's the number? If you want to come forward, you can.
Yeah, we think it's probably about 800. We're not sure, and that's one of the things we're waiting for Granicus to give us the data, so we don't really know how many are illegal, right, at this point. So it is hard to estimate how much money we could generate by fines, because we'd have to figure out how many are illegally operating, and we also have kind of we've talked about the structure, which we don't have the code amended yet, but, increasing the fines, and what are those based on, right? Are there certain warnings, and you increase the fees as they have more fines and more violations, so it's a trickier methodology for sure.
We don't know the number, so,
Don't.
and do we know what the fine is for a unlicensed STR?
The fine right now, Renata, do you recall?
Currently, the fine for violating the municipal code is $100.
Yeah.
And it could be charged at $100 per day.
Oh, wow.
But generally, when we contact someone who has not received a permit and we find out that they're operating, they come in the next day and apply and become legal. So we have not had to issue any fines because we give them that opportunity to come in and be licensed.
And Randy, given that, basically, we couldn't really count on any revenue coming in if that's the current policy.
Probably not, and probably not in a timeline that we can even predict, because of, as we just discussed, there can be appeals, there can be failure to pay after that, then it goes to collection. It could be months before there's even a judgment. Whether we can collect those fines or not is not certain.
Yeah, because given, okay, so just throwing numbers out there, if there's 800 unqualified or unregistered and it's a $45 fine, that's $80,000 that would come in, assuming that they all would pay and assuming that they all don't license up at that point in time. Do we know what the track record is? I mean, how many fines have, and I hate to ask this, how many fines have we actually given out for an unlicensed STR? Pretty sure the
Done
number's between
warnings, is my
0 and
understanding.
1.
Renata, has it just been warnings at
We
this
haven't
point?
had anybody that refused to comply after they've been warned. I don't know how else to put it. We've given them the warning that they've been caught, they come down and become licensed, so we didn't issue a ticket.
Okay, so it's,
Can I suggest, because of this dilemma and this concern with this, that as you look at the fees, you reject that whole fee, and we come back to it after the study's done, and we can pay we've got enough in general fund to pay that right now.
Yep.
And then we can reimburse general fund once we get all the information and make a decision about we know more about how many people
the
we've
right
got
amount?
actually that are going to be licensed, and we know what we're going to charge for people who are not complying with the licensure, and that we're dealing with hard facts then, and at this point, rather than trying to do these projections that don't carry enough information, why don't we just reject that for now?
okay, so,
Thank you. I think that's where I was going when I was talking about it, is that,
Yeah.
can we just remove this one, and that's a good solution to say, once we have everyone in compliance, we're not gonna change the Granicus contract as far as its price or its deadline or anything else. We're gonna fund it through the general fund, and then once we get through the 1st of March, we'll have a better base, because we'll know the facts of how many
Yeah.
holders we have and how to divide it, and then we can set the upcoming and ongoing rates at that point.
So whoever makes that motion can, in their motion, include that rejection.
well, that's gonna be scary.
Mr. Mayor, I have a thought here. So by doing that, if someone has been running their rental unlicensed, there's no slap on the wrist, there's no cost for not joining the club or getting the license ever. It's just if we find out you're not playing right, paying fair, you just get to join the club. Does that seem fair?
Well, actually, that is a decision that's yet to be made.
Okay. All right.
That's all a part of what we're talking about
Okay,
doing.
thank you.
That's why I'm saying, we're trying to decide how to set some fees when we don't have all the information. Let them gather all that information. Let us know exactly how many STRs we've got out there, how many are non-compliant, how we want to deal with those non-compliant,
Okay.
and then we'll make some decisions.
All right, thank you.
Ready for a motion?
So I'll take a stab at this.
Thank you.
Since it's going to be scary. I will make a motion to approve Resolution 22063, which is establishing fees for building, finance, legal, library, municipal services, parks and recreation, planning, police, and water departments, as presented, with the exception of the short-term vacation rental permit increases.
I wanted to offer an amendment.
You just want to amend that, or?
Well, I think Kiki.
Then I will withdraw the motion, since it's obviously,
Well, no, it's good. I thought Kiki wanted to pull out Park and Rec and legal, so that we could look at those again.
I do.
Maybe you
And
guys-
so that would be,
maybe Kiki makes the motion.
so I would approve, with the exception of the legal fee increase, the parks use fees changes, and the Granicus, no, the short-term rental permit fee change,
Do you wanna
and
put that
establishing
in
the rest.
Full motion?
And establishing fees for building, finance, library, planning, police, and water.
Well done. Second.
Is that clear?
Just want to verify, so you did not include municipal services sign fee in there, and I just want to make sure you intended to leave it out, or do you want to include municipal service sign fee? And on
Municipal
parks,
service sign fee is fine. Just those three are the only two I intended to pull out, was parks, legal, and the short-term rental permit.
Okay, so Parks and Recreation is listed as one department. Did you want the recreation fees separate from the park fees, or pull all of them?
Pull all of them.
Okay, thank you.
You've heard the motion before you. Will the clerk take the roll, please?
So, Mayor, I have a quick question here. So what he said about his time and effort doesn't apply?
Who, he?
Randy, the
No,
attorney.
absolutely. I think we just need a little more development of what it does apply to. Because as I understand it right now, it's to cover all appeals. And so I think we might need a little more discussion to say that fee may not apply to, or we expand that staff report to say what appeals does it apply to. And I just feel like we're not giving the citizens a fair shake to have their say in some of these things, and it isn't described that well for what those
Okay.
those fees apply to.
And then the park side is $300 is too much for a gazebo for a local, but it's really only 200. And where do we draw the line, and how do we do it?
I
Do you
don't
get a
know.
better deal if you live here or not?
And that's why
Okay.
I want to pull it, is I want to have a chance to talk about that, because I just feel like $300 for, a citizen who is already paying for our parks is a lot.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Dan?
I would just add that I will support this, but I would support the legal fee for the hearing officer fee. I'm familiar with that process. It is very time intensive. And again, I think they're giving many opportunities. And, if you want to go in to have your day in court or something, it's going to cost you some fees. So that is one I'd keep in, but I'll still vote for the motion to take them out and look further.
Clerk, take the roll, please.
Miller,
I
McEvers,
Okay,
Gookin,
Yep.
English,
Yes?
Wood.
Yes.
We need an executive session.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I would be delighted to enter into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74206J to consider labor contract matters authorized under Section 74206A, 1A, and B.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Will the clerk take the roll, please?
Miller,
Aye.
McEvers,
yes.
Gookin,
Of course.
English,
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Motion carries. We will adjourn to executive session.